Kacper and Denis here at the Submission Radio HQ. That's right, you guys got introduced to this place after the wonderful McGregor-Mayweather fight, but this is your first time. This is their first time at the Submission Radio HQ. Feast your eyes on the prize piece in the room. Make no mistake about it. Plenty of gold throughout the HQ, but we decide to go in front of this symbolic poster right here. It's, of course, the Expandables poster that Kacper got at a four-finger discount. We don't want to go back into it. Let's just say the legislation maybe still hasn't passed. There might still be some issues coming from, but let's just say it's looked very, very nice here.
I was at a cinema, there was this poster, it was delicious, it was unattended, and now it's in my house. And for some unforeseeable reason, I have trouble getting to the United States these days, but it doesn't really matter.
That's right, and of course some retro superstars on the poster. Stone Cold Steve Austin, Randy Couture. Who else we got on?
Jet Li, Terry Crews, Mickey Rourke.
It's all happening.
Bruce Willis.
And I kind of feel like it's kind of poetic to be in front of this poster, Kacper, because the old school superstars on the poster, an old school superstar making his return tonight, UFC 217. George St-Pierre made his middleweight debut, UFC return against Michael Bisping in a fight where people were like, yeah, I love GSP, but like, Michael Bisping's really, really good, and that's the thing with Bisping, you know, the guy has had a phenomenal career, so going into this fight, people didn't quite know what to expect of it. GSP walks out as the middleweight champion. Let's just begin by talking about the performance in the fight itself. What did you think of it? Because you and me, we spoke about it for a while. Will he be explosive? Will the ring rust be an issue? What did you think of the GSP that you saw in the octagon today?
I think for the most part he looked good. You know, with the Carlos Condit fight, he admitted that he felt cage rust, and that was after what I think Sean Sheen said 18 months. So logic would say that he would have felt really bad cage rust, and against a guy like Michael Bisping, who's a very technical striker, doesn't really let you ease into it. I thought he was going to look bad. I think he looked good. I think his jab looked good. He evolved a little bit. He had some cheeky side kicks. He was throwing spinning back kicks. Of course, the punch that he threw that knocked Bisping down, the left hook, you don't really see GSP throw a lot of power shots as far as hooks. You know, it's a lot of straight punches with him. His right hand has traditionally been a very weak one because he puts so much emphasis into that jab. So I think the left hook was sort of a new wrinkle as part of his game. I thought, you know, watching that fight, had a good first round. The second round didn't really go great for him. Bisping found his groove. He started opening up. GSP looked like he was getting tired. He looked like he took him down to sort of get a bit of a rest, maybe catch his breath, pace himself. In the third round, I thought, oh, it's all kind of unraveling here. Even though GSP was on top, he didn't really do a whole lot. And sort of Bisping tattooed his face from the bottom, a lot of good elbows. And I think, you know, Bisping was, it was one apiece, but I think Bisping was definitely getting the momentum. And I kind of thought this extra weight of GSP, the you know, carrying all that extra muscle mass, it's going to affect his cardio. And then out of nowhere, he drops Bisping. And, you know, this is the crazy thing. GSP's always had this criticism that he ekes out these fights. A lot of, you know, the consensus was that he's a dominant champion, but a very boring fighter. Comes out 4 years later, wins the middleweight belt, finishes Michael Bisping. There's a lot of hyperbole. There's a lot of times fighters say, I'll do whatever I want. I'll knock him out. I'll finish him. I'll do this. GSP really lived up to his word, and what a poetic way to do it. Choked Michael Bisping out unconscious in a pool of his own blood.
It was unbelievable, and also, of course, some issues. There were cup issues.
Yeah.
There was a mouth guard issue. Joe Rogan was having a field day, basically. Things were happening. He was talking about how that cup was loose in that underwear, how it might affect Michael Bisping. And by the way, Michael Bisping took a little bit of time to sort of get into his rhythm today.
Yeah.
Looked a little bit, I suppose it looked a little bit like out of his element at the beginning of the fight, a little bit slow. You could just see that it wasn't quite there. But as you mentioned, going into the fight and as it went on, it was noticeable that GSP was getting tired.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, was able to finish Michael Bisping in an astounding way. Then, of course, the post-fight interviews happen, and this is when, I suppose this is when you become one of these people that are mind readers. You become Principal Skinner. I know you can hear me, boy.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was very, very interesting. And actually, me and Kacper watched the post-fight interview once again before we did this recording, just because we had some rowdy units. We have rowdy units from time to time sitting around. They were doing things, they were talking about things. They distracted the two superstars from actually watching the show.
The Z-level superstars.
The Z-level superstars.
There were barn animals running around and we couldn't hear them. Between GSP's, you know, somewhat poor English and also being apologizing profusely for saying swear words like damn and balls and things like that. And then this cryptic message that he said when Joe Rogan asked him, are you staying at middleweight? Are you going to welterweight? And what did he say?
It was very confusing.
How did you take it?
Well, my aspect to it was when he said, you know, along the lines of going up to this, like he did it for the challenge of fighting Michael Bisping, but it didn't sound like that he's going to be sticking around middleweight. From what I understood,
he said he's not a true middleweight.
He's not a true middleweight. Then he spoke about how back in the day he didn't feel really like he was that big for welterweight, and now he's sort of teed it out, and he's, I suppose, a good size for a welterweight, but didn't really mention if it was middleweight. The whole thing was very confusing. And then he went on to talk about the fight. I kind of really wanted Joe Rogan to follow up on those points to find out what it is, but I don't know. Like, it was, to me, it kind of sounded like he was planning on going back down to welterweight from listening to that. It was very difficult. We were waiting for the post-fight press conference. That didn't happen, which is another situation where you go, and we spoke about this before. Is he really going to the hospital? You know, did the UFC not want him to do a post-fight press conference yet? What's going on? Because we really didn't want to. He had the cut above his nose, but you're like,
Yeah.
And the other thing that me and Kacper were talking about was Robert Whittaker. He was there. He flew all the way from Perth to New York. He had some pretty terrible seats, by the way. Like, it didn't look like right there in the action. Like, he wasn't in the Conor McGregor, this guy's so close to the octagon, he's like a fourth corner person zone. He was like in the hoodie, t-shirt, and did you pay for your tickets? Show me your tickets zone. And then they just kind of show Robert Whittaker, they don't bring him into the octagon. That's very, very strange. I mean, did you make anything of that? Because to me, even though Dana White says this fight is next, it's like they're not really doubling down on it. It's like they don't want to 100% make sure this is it. And let's not forget, with Michael Bisping, they brought him in when Robert Whittaker won that interim title. So they did that. But they're not doing it for this fight. But they're saying it's going to happen. Does that make sense?
I find the whole thing comical. Maybe they're just learning with this middleweight division, because you remember, like, after UFC 205, obviously the last show in New York, you had Yoel Romero getting that great win. Michael Bisping was up in the rafters like Sting. They had that great, back and forth, I love you, boy, and all that. And then that fight never happened. And then, Robert Whittaker gets in Bisping gets in after Robert Whittaker wins, and then that fight didn't happen. So maybe they just want to kind of, avoid that, which is kind of funny and also a missed opportunity, because Robert Whittaker, he's all about, not breaking up his training camp. He's all about, he didn't want to do tough because he was saying it wasn't really worth his time, or they didn't really make it worth his time. He didn't want to interrupt his schedule. So now you've got the poor guy flying out from Perth all the way to New York for kind of nothing. I guess
flying to Perth.
So flying to New York.
From Sydney to Perth, that breaks up your training, because Perth is actually ages away. We're excited to go to Perth, but it's ages away. And then from Perth to New York. I mean, that kind of...
I think the only good thing about it is that he got to do some media while he was there, so he got a little bit of extra exposure. But to me, it just seems like, even though at the post-fight presser, Dana White said, when he asked about, what is next, he said, Robert Whittaker versus GSP. But it's like, if you're so confident, why are you not bringing Robert Whittaker in there? That would be the best exposure of the week. When everybody's watching the pay-per-view, everybody's pumped about the fight, everybody's pumped about GSP's performance, you bring him in, they shake hands, stare down, whatever they do. Obviously, there's going to be no trash talk. I was a little bit disappointed on that. And just on GSP, I feel like he was cryptic for a reason. Not only, you said Joe Rogan didn't follow up, but like GSP took a massive sort of detour and changed the topic. It was like, George, what weight are you going to be fighting at? I'm not... First he says, I'm not a real middleweight. That's like red flag number one. It's like, alright. And even leading to this fight, whenever someone asked, will you really fight Robert Whittaker? GSP was like, it's in my contract. He didn't say, yes, I want to fight Robert Whittaker. Yes, I'll be a true middleweight champion. He said, it's in my contract. And I kind of stand by the fact that if for whatever reason GSP maybe strong arms the UFC, who knows if he has that much pull. But if he says, look, fuck you need stars. I'm your second biggest star by default. You have no Ronda, you have no John Jones. You still have Conor, but you need someone else to draw pay-per-views. And I don't want to fight Robert Whittaker. I want Woodley, or I want McGregor. Will the UFC potentially cave and say, look, we want to do money fights, screw the rankings, which they've kind of done away with, will that potentially happen? So I think GSP's keeping his options open.
Exactly, and I mean, let's be honest. If GSP says I'm going to fight Robert Whittaker, the UFC, I'm going to lose sleep over it. They'll move on. And let's not forget about the fact as well, he would be fighting in Perth, and Perth is a beautiful area in Australia, but we all know the money market for GSP is Canada. Are you going to go to Perth and fight Robert Whittaker, or are you going to fight like a Tyron Woodley? Or let's say like things get super crazy and somehow this Conor McGregor thing was possible, and you're the UFC and you're Conor McGregor. I mean, there's so much money on the table, it's just ridiculous. Let's not forget about the fact as well that Robert Whittaker has defeated some of the top guys in the middleweight division, so if you technically wanted to, you could make him the champion, and he could have, he's still got credibility. I think as an interim champion, he's got a lot of credibility. People believe in him. He could defend his the middleweight title against someone else. You've got all these killers in the division. Luke Rockhold, for example, a whole bunch of guys. You can make it work.
What do you want to see, though? I mean, we're sort of trying to play predictions here. What do you want to see, though? If you were running the UFC, if you could have your way, do you want to see GSP or Robert Whittaker? Do you want to see this McGregor, or Woodley fight for GSP? What do you think?
Look, I think it's a tough one because when I think about this, obviously I'd love to see Robert Whittaker fight GSP. I think it'd be a very, very exciting fight. But when I think about GSP and the fact that we have a very, very limited amount of time with him, I don't think this is a guy that's in a position that needs to be holding a middleweight title. I think this is a guy that's got 1 or 2 fights left, and I want to see the most maximum exciting fights possible from him. So yeah, like I would love to see him versus a Tyron Woodley or like a Conor McGregor fight, as ridiculous as it is. I'm a big fan of show, I'm a big fan of entertainment. I just think, that fight, even though it's just so ridiculous, would just have so much interesting aspects to it that I'd be down for it as well. I'm not saying that Robert Whittaker isn't worthy of the fight. What I'm saying is there's so many great fights out there for Robert Whittaker already, and I just believe not only will it be a very, very difficult fight for GSP because Robert Whittaker is so talented, I just think that GSP's name could be used for some bigger fights while he's still around. And one of the things I wanted to mention is in the post-fight interview he mentioned he didn't even really remember the finish of the fight when Joe Rogan was showing him the replay. He didn't really recall it. We know he's got some issues from all the concussions that he's had. He's talking about aliens and all this kind of stuff. So we don't really know how long GSP has left in the sport. No doubt about it. So to me, as much as I'd love to cover it in Perth because we'll be there, I can understand why he'd fight someone else. What about you?
Look, I think for the sake of meritocracy, I'd love for GSP to fight Robert Whittaker.
Yeah.
I think if he doesn't do that, then he needs to relinquish that belt. He needs to give up the middleweight title, and he need to have, say, like a Luke Rockhold versus Robert Whittaker in Perth. I think the only, I guess, solace you can take from that is what you mentioned, and that is that Robert Whittaker, he's consistently faced the top guys. He fought Yoel Romero, he fought Jacare, he fought a bunch of guys before that.
Better defenses than Michael Bisping, you could argue.
Right. Yeah. So if it was Robert Whittaker versus Luke Rockhold, even though technically he wouldn't be the lineal middleweight champion, I think people would sort of turn a blind eye to that. But if GSP is going to go down a welterweight fight, Tyron Woodley or McGregor, I think you would absolutely have to relinquish the belt because otherwise it'd just be
100%. But let's not forget about the fact UFC EA3's coming out and Conor McGregor's on the cover of that bad boy with 2 belts on his shoulders. GSP relinquishes the belt. In people's heads, he can still walk around with that belt. He can still be the champion. No one's gonna really turn a blind eye. No one's going to go crazy about it. But what about Michael Bisping? Because this guy, obviously, amazing career, does great things. We suspect that maybe this might be the last fight of his career. He goes into the post-fight interview, starts thanking everybody, and then we realize he's sticking around. He's still going to have another one at least.
That was hilarious the way he did it. It was like, in this career, I just want to thank everyone who supported me. I want to thank my coaches. I want to thank my family. And then you think, oh, this is over. And then he's like, I'm not retiring. It's like, what are you doing? It's like an M. Night Shyamalan twist right there from Michael Bisping.
Yeah.
Respect to him. I wonder what he's sort of fighting for if he's sticking around. I mean,
the rumors are he wants to have that one last fight over in England. There's that
Manchester.
Yeah, Manchester. He said he's ready for a quick turnaround apparently for March.
Yeah.
Could be a good send-off for him. And he's a champion for the UFC. What me and Kacper know about Michael Bisping is behind the scenes, this is a guy that's a promotional workhorse for the UFC.
Yeah.
He's built a lot of cards. He's done a lot for the UFC. So I'm expecting the UFC to maybe give him a decent matchup to go out on maybe in Manchester.
Yeah, kind of given the Brad Pickett treatment. I also feel like with Michael Bisping, he's kind of had a Conor McGregor-esque year in terms of, I think it was 2014 where Conor McGregor spent so much time on the sidelines, but he talked so much and he gained such a following. And I think kind of the same as with Michael Bisping, where even though he didn't do a lot of fighting recently, even though there was a lot of controversy, even though he was very polarizing as a champion, a lot of people didn't really like him, and etc. But his star power has raised a lot. Obviously not to Conor McGregor levels, but just in the sense that he's become a lot more popular in his time away than I think in the last, say, 5 years while he was active.
Yeah, he never gets that, like his last fight was against a Dan Henderson or something like that, and in the fashion that it was in. And he does have big movie opportunities, got some Netflix deal coming into the fold next year.
Yeah.
Let's not beat around the bush. He is a lot slower. He doesn't look the same as he once did, and GSP spoke about how one of his strategies with that punch was actually like focusing towards that other side of Michael Bisping's face with the bung eye. And we don't know how bung that eye is, but it is bung, my friend. I don't know how bad it is, but
I've heard he still has to have another surgery. Once he finally finishes, once he does retire, he still has one more surgery. Michael Bisping has given his body to MMA. So if anyone deserves a break and to walk away and do things like Netflix and movies, absolutely Michael Bisping does.
Yeah, so who knows what happens there. Let's talk about the co-main event of the evening, because this is a crazy card. Titles were being thrown around left and right. People were ducking, weaving. It's like Jake Shields had a coffee and was throwing it at someone. That's how hot this event was. And of course, Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw, they finally had this fight, which, by the way, for me, I was really excited about the fight. Also, kind of excited to have this rivalry come to an end. I was getting sick and tired of hearing them talk about what happened in training, who did this, what happened there. Then obviously the footage was released and all this other hoo-ha, but the fight actually happened, and it was a great, great fight. Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw got in there. Cody had a great first round, almost finished TJ. He got saved by the bell, went in there, and then TJ was able to finish Cody. They were both in the pocket. They were tied up. Both guys were missing punches, and then in the end, TJ was able to land that punch and finish off Cody. In the post-fight press conference, Cody sort of alluded to his back maybe not being the greatest in this fight. But overall, what did you think of the Cody that we saw at UFC 217? Did he look like the Cody of normal, or did you think there was a little bit of a slowdown to him?
To me, I think it was the Cody of 100%. If there was any kind of slowdown, I certainly didn't see it. It looked like when he was asked that question during the press conference, he didn't want to make any excuses. You know, he sort of, you never really know what a fighter is like when they're going in, when they're 100%, but I think Cody sort of played it off like a man, very similar to Dominic Cruz at UFC 207. I think that's something that you can definitely respect about him, that he didn't make any excuses. I think he looked great throughout the fight, especially the fact that he was able to drop TJ Dillashaw from the very beginning. I think really what it just comes down to is TJ Dillashaw being the better man on the night. You know, he switched up his style a little bit, fought a very smart tactical fight. He stayed long. TJ Dillashaw, a lot of the times, he sort of uses a lot of lateral movement. You know, he has this sort of neutral stance. He squares up with his opponents. He goes left, right, and then he tries to surprise him with, which punch or which hand he's going to throw. And he didn't really do that with Dillashaw. So you saw the growth in him, and I think this is kind of the story here is, TJ Dillashaw leaving Team Alpha Male and obviously catching a lot of flack for it, a lot of negativity. And so the scrutiny here was, did TJ make the right decision? He left Team Alpha Male, he lost the belt. In the meantime, Cody won the belt. And so it was kind of like, did TJ maybe make a mistake by leaving? Even in the lead up, like he wasn't training Team Elevation anymore. His camp was good all over the place. He was all over the place in California, training with all these different people. And I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't think he was going to win, because I think when you lose that kind of stability that you're used to, that's got to mess with your head. And, true to form, he won, he became the champion, was the first person to beat Cody in the UFC. Not only beat him, it wasn't like he squeaked by in a decision, he stopped him brutally, knocked him out. So it was an amazing performance by TJ Dillashaw.
And then to follow up that performance, of course, the post-fight speech, TJ Dillashaw on the mic, killing it.
Yeah.
Talking about Demetrius Johnson in the post-fight press conference, TJ said that if he takes it seriously, changes some stuff around, he believes 125 is going to be possible for him. What did you think of the post-fight press conference? And are you a fan of this Demetrius Johnson fight, or are you thinking you'd like to see him versus Dominic Cruz instead?
Yeah, look, it's not a bad fight. Like, stylistically, is it a fun fight?
Is it a money fight?
I don't think it is. And that's the thing, because people keep saying that. Like, Dana White seemed pretty adamant, and he didn't hesitate to take a shot at Demetrius Johnson, saying how he's been crying about a money fight. He's his money fight. But as a lot of people,
that's not a nice thing to say.
well, you're going to hurt feelings like that, you know? You don't want to do that. Are you in the business of hurting feelings? I don't think you are. So, and I think a lot of people have already pointed this out, that it's not really a money fight. TJ Dillashaw, Demetrius Johnson, phenomenal fighters, but are they big stars? Are they going to be, like, you know, we had Kevin Lee versus, you know, Tony Ferguson. You had skill, you had trash talk, you had a lot of build-up, and the rumours are that it didn't do very well, you know, as far as pay-per-views. TJ Dillashaw versus Demetrius Johnson. Yes, there'd be at least one title on the line. Would it draw a lot? I don't think so. And to be honest, I'm pretty lukewarm about that fight. I've kind of done a bit of a 180. I know if TJ decides to go down in weight, there's not really anything that Demetrius Johnson can do to sort of stop that fight. I don't think Demetrius is going to go up in weight, to be honest. I think he's more comfortable at 125. I think for him, you know, it's about the payday. And I think as long as he can keep racking up wins and extending that record for most consecutive title defenses, he's happy with that. And if he's going to go to 135, he wants the extra money. And Dana White made it pretty clear that he's not going to do that. You know, when asked, will he get more money? Will he get the $2 million like he said on a show? Dana White said, he's a UFC, he's a pay-per-view partner. If, you know, let's see how the pay-per-view does. If he gets the pay-per-view points, then he'll earn the extra money. I think when pay-per-view points start to matter, it's around the 600,000 pay-per-view buy, and I don't think it's going to clear that. So therefore, Demetrius Johnson, chances are, he's not making any extra money. So I would much rather see, you've got this great fight between Jimmy Rivera and Dominic Cruz. Whoever wins that, that's the next fight. And if it is Dominic Cruz, you get Dominic Cruz, TJ Dillashaw, the rematch, and that's a fight that I've wanted to see. So that's what I want. What about you?
No, I agree with you. And Dana White, of course, asking the media member that asked that question, what if he wants $2 million, if he'd ask his boss for $2 million, and of course if Submission Radio was there, we'd say we'd ask our boss for $3 million, because, you know, that's the money team there. But the thing is about the situation as well is, I think the UFC have to be a bit careful here. You can't have everybody become a dual champion.
Yeah.
I feel like it loses its allure if everyone becomes a dual champion. So you'll have TJ Dillashaw as a dual champion, maybe GSP as a dual champion, maybe Conor McGregor as a dual champion. I mean, it's getting a bit ridiculous and out of hand here. And then another division gets held up. The whole thing's a bit, you know, you can't just keep doing it. And then if you do it all the time, the dudes that are dual champions, does that lose its kind of luster a little bit? Do you know? So, I don't know. If I'm Dana White and I'm thinking this thing through, there's some great fights there for TJ Dillashaw. Maybe see what happens, like you mentioned, with the matchup. Maybe if Dominic Cruz does fight again. Maybe if he beats Dominic Cruz, maybe after that. But at the moment, I just think there's some great fights there. And Demetrius Johnson, even though there's not many challenges for him, they'll find someone. They'll wrestle something up. Yeah. Especially if they're not really considering giving him a lot of those pay-per-view points, and he's going through this whole thing, and the money might be similar. If you're Demetrius Johnson, you might even just be like, hey, that's what I'm looking for as well. And
I think there's a lot of hurdles as well in terms of, like, look, I see why TJ Dillashaw would want to move down, but, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe Demetrius Johnson would want a chance of being a dual champion. So then it's kind of that, like, alright, you got two champions fighting, but who moves up, who moves down? Maybe Demetrius wants to go to 135 and hold two belts. So, again, like you mentioned, holding up the divisions, we've had enough of that over the last, you know, year or two. I'm sick of it. Let's get a bit of meritocracy back, and, you know, Dominic Cruz, Jimmy Rivera, whoever wins, that's the next one.
That's right. And, you know, the funny thing here, Kacper, is if somehow Demetrius Johnson does become the dual champion and he thinks this is going to be the key to him getting paid well in the UFC, and then somehow gets paid the same or less, that's going to be the funniest thing about it at all. You know, I don't really think it has to do with title belts. I kind of think it's got to do with what's going on right now in the world of pay-per-view and his relationship with Dana White. So we'll see if that changes. Let's jump over to the queen that got dethroned today at UFC 217, Joanna Jedrejczyk, losing to Rose in a fight that a lot of people thought was just going to add to Joanna's legacy. It didn't happen. It was pretty shocking. People expected Joanna to win. What did you take away from her performance in this, how this fight played out? In your predictions, did you think that Rose was going to be able to strip her of the title in this kind of fashion?
Well, not only did I not think that Rose was going to win, I didn't think that she was, you know, going to be this dominant. I thought that if she was going to win, it would be some kind of... I thought it would either be a close decision or her be strangling Joanna, like, you know, getting somewhere near the cage, putting her up against the fence, and then taking her back and, you know, choking her out, you know, kind of like Angela Hill style, or maybe Joanna falling and getting choked out. And that's the thing, Rose has... You know, she has a lot of creative attacks, but she's never been known really for the power in her hands. And especially considering that, you know, with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she was able to technically outpoint Rose Namajunas. I thought Joanna, with the extra speed, the extra power, the extra abilities, the ferocity, she was going to have a field day. And I was completely shocked. Also, with Rose's mindset, I honestly had a lot of questions about that going into the fight. I think there was, at least going to the fight, when Joanna said that Rose was unstable, mentally unstable, I thought there was some truth to that, you know, with Rose talking about how all her passwords on her computer was, I think, UFC 217 and new, or something like that. Like, she was constantly giving herself these affirmations, this self-belief, and I thought, you know, if you're always trying to do that, I can see that kind of as a sign of weakness, where if everything doesn't align perfectly, you know, if something happens to rattle you, you might fall off. Like a person walking the tightrope, and then there's a breeze, or somebody throws something, you know, if anything happens, you're falling off that tightrope. And this is a crazy situation where everything kind of went perfectly. She called all of Joanna's bluffs leading to the fight, you know, where Joanna had her fist in her face, and I don't know, maybe that rattled Joanna a little bit in the fight. But I think when it came down to it, really, it was just all Rose. And we see Joanna get clipped a lot in her fights. And this was the shot that finally put her down. So it was an amazing performance by Rose.
And Joanna, of course, very gracious in defeat. In the post-fight press conference, giving Rose all the credit. And speaking,
no excuses.
No excuses. And speaking about the fact that, you know, the big surprise, she was going to move up. Now she wants to get her title back. And it looks like, because, you know, we've spoken to Joanna before, and she's got a lot going on. Apart from the fact that she's a UFC champion, she's very popular in Poland, she's got her fingers in a bunch of different pots, and also she was looking to sort of start a family soon. So we didn't quite know how long she was going to stick around for, but it really looks like losing this fight puts MMA as a main priority for her now. She wants that title back. If you're in the UFC, with everything that Joanna's done, do you book a rematch, or is it a situation where you wanted to fight someone else in order to deserve that rematch?
Look, honestly, you can talk about the accolades, you can talk about whether someone is deserving for it, but just in general, unless it's controversial, unless it was some bizarre split decision, or, you know, the new Athletic Commission screwing something up again, I just rather move on. I don't like these immediate rematches. Like, look, she was knocked out, and the crazy thing is, Joanna tapped to the strikes. I mean, I'm dumbfounded. It doesn't get better as far as, you know, dethroning someone than that. It's so clean. I don't think you need to do a rematch. There's all these, you know, people talking about this division being cleaned out by Joanna, and it's like, what was once old is now new. You know, Andrade, maybe she's in line for a title bout. You know, Claudia Gadelha, now she can jump in there. You know, there's a whole bunch of fights.
Joseph Benavidez.
That guy's been overdue for a title.
Poor Joseph, come on, man, you can do it. No seriousness. Joseph Benavidez.
I don't see a need for a rematch. And I think the good thing about also, you know, Joanna and the way she's handled this defeat is she kind of, you know, there were always the comparisons to Ronda Rousey, and in sort of one foul swoop, she sort of separated her, at least in this sense, by she also put a lot of pressure on herself, saying she wants to retire undefeated. That was a big narrative, and I feel like that was a narrative going into this fight, and every fight it became a bigger and bigger narrative, and you just think, I don't know how someone could handle that much pressure, and here it was the undoing. But rather than handling her first defeat like Ronda Rousey and sort of hiding, she came straight out, you know, at the post-fight press conference, and she referred to that as bullshit, saying like, you know, this is a loss, this is just another day, like, I'm not going anywhere. So a lot of respect for that.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see what happens next. Now, this is going to be her priority, trying to get her title back. Will she move up eventually? Will getting the title back and maybe defending it once be enough for her and she moves on with her career? No doubt about it, this loss has definitely changed the pathway as to what she was planning on doing next. I'm excited to see what happens. Also, Rose, you know, for a long time people believed the UFC sort of saw Rose as the next big thing. She's got the shaved head now, she says the Lord's Prayer in the ceremonial ways, nothing wrong with that. A little bit cultish, that's nothing wrong with that. But I think the UFC might be excited. This is a young person that could be marketed well. Someone that's, you know, from America, so they could sort of push her a bit more, and there won't be any language barriers. Not that Joanna couldn't speak English, but there are little language barriers here and there. So for the UFC, I think it's kind of exciting, a little bit of fresh air, and some new matchups, like you said. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens in the division. It's like a bit of a shake-up. I'm kind of excited. I want to see what happens now.
To be honest, I'm very curious to see how, and this is not me downing Rose in any way, but I'm very curious to see how Rose handles the responsibilities as a champion. We saw with Robert Whittaker when we interviewed him after winning the interim belt. He was saying, oh, I didn't realize, you know, something along the lines of, you know, the work starts once you win the belt. And that's exactly what happens. And I think that's one of the things that made Joanna so brilliant. literally every single opportunity she got, she took the chance, took the opportunity to sort of, you know, reach out to fans, to media. You saw every press conference without a doubt. Doesn't matter what the first question was, it was always, "Hi New York, hi Vegas, it's great to be here." Every talk show she did, it was, you know, great to be here, great to speak. I don't know whether Joanna ever liked us or not, but she certainly made us feel like
we always
she
spoke
liked
about
us.
sneakers with her.
Yeah.
That was our in.
That was our in.
It never worked. Sometimes it did.
Open workouts, she'd mingle with fans, and like, you know, even sometimes when people would ask
polish,
her,
that kind of work.
that worked.
Yeah.
When people would
We're
ask
polish.
her,
You're still polish, I'm pretty sure.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you know, people would ask her boring questions, she would just change the question, answer in a more exciting way.
Yeah.
You get some sound bites. And with Rose, it kind of seemed like she was trying to sort of ignore a lot of the bright lights and ignore some of those things. And they say that, you know, the champ life, it's a very hard life, and sometimes it can distract you from trainings and those kinds of things. So, you know, I'm curious to see how Rose handles it, but I love the story of Rose going in there. I think she was, like, 22 when she versus Carla Esparza, got completely wiped out, dominated. I think that was still in a lot of people's minds. Sort of, I think, was a little bit immature at that point, not as a person, but as a fighter.
Yeah.
She wasn't ready to handle those bright lights, and here she comes. She worked her way back around, you know, did it the hard way, and, you know, I think it was her maturity and mental strength that really helped her, you know, win in this fight. So it's a good story.
Yeah, it's crazy. You look at her at the beginning of her career, you look at TJ Dillashaw at the beginning of their career, a lot of guys that are just completely different, wouldn't be able to recognize them just from the advancements that they've made in their skill set. Quickly, as we wrap up, just want to quickly touch on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Jorge Masvidal. This is a fight that a lot of people are looking forward to. A lot of technical striking here. Fighting Wonderboy isn't an easy thing to do. He was able to win this fight. He was able to, I suppose, show everybody that, you know, he's still Wonderboy, he still got it, but it wasn't a dominating win that's going to get him a title shot straight away. And also, even if he destroyed Masvidal, it's probably not going to be very likely that he was going to get this title shot. So, if you're looking at what's next for Wonderboy, are you still a fan of possibly doing this Covington fight, or is there someone else in the division that you think might be good for him to sort of build up this title run?
Yeah, I haven't really looked through the rankings too much.
Maybe Robbie Lawler, RDA, but you think the winner of that might sort of get that title shot even?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a tough one. I'll probably have a better answer when we do the show and it comes out on Wednesday, Thursday. I think with Covington that they're really trying to steer him towards, you know, potentially title shot against Tyron Woodley. He's campaigning hard. He's campaigning really, really hard. Wonderboy is a really difficult test. But then again, you know, if Covington is able to take him down, I think it's clearly Covington's fight. I don't know, and I think Covington's the kind of guy where, you know, he's not afraid of anyone, not that Wonderboy would be either. So I think Covington would be more than down for the fight. And I don't see Wonderboy getting the winner of Robbie Lawler and RDA either, to be honest. I think at the moment, it's probably going to be Robbie Lawler, RDA. They will get the title shot, like Dana White said, even though a lot of people are against it, and Wonderboy's just going to have to fight someone else. And there aren't really many other options other than Covington, to be honest.
It's going to be very interesting, and then if GSP somehow finagles his way into the front of the line, things are going to get explosive. Of course, I'm sure we'll talk to Wonderboy about it, baby, because the guy is just, he's a great guy, and, you know, overall, though, as we wrap this up, we were at UFC 205 over there in Madison Square Garden, the first card at MSG. Now, obviously, this was a great card as well. When you're comparing the cards, what stands out to you as sort of the bigger card? To me personally, I really felt like that first MSG show, there was something about it. Obviously, there was also a whole lot of stuff happening in the background. The election was happening, people were going crazy, so some of that attention was taken away. But I definitely felt a buzz in New York with that show. I definitely felt like on the night when Conor McGregor beat Eddie Alvarez, that was the place to be. That was the ticket to have. If you had a ticket to that place, it was a special thing. With this, there were great fights, but does this event have the same luster for you, or bigger maybe luster? Maybe you're feeling more luster than me.
I think it's just very different. I mean, you know, here we are in Australia at home. There we were actually in New York, right? You know, where it was happening. And I think, like, you know, watching the fights from home, it's a little bit easier to enjoy because when you're there at an event, you know, there's so many things you're doing. You know, post-fight interviews. I remember Tim Boach was doing his post-fight interview after his win, and the Khabib fight was starting. So to me, I just, you know, like, I'll put it like this. Joe Rogan was talking about how he was thinking about of retiring, moving on from commentating, and then UFC 196 happened, and, you know, Holly Holm got beaten in the last second by Miesha Tate, and then Nate Diaz, you know, dethroned Conor McGregor, obviously not for a belt. And obviously that was what changed his mind. He said, I'm not fucking going anyway, this sport's too crazy. to me, it's kind of one of those moments. I wanted to joke about it where, like, if Joe Rogan had any kind of ideas about retiring, this card...
Stick it around.
Maybe we just bought another year with Joe Rogan. It was that kind of card. Like, pretty much all upsets. I think GSP was technically the favourite, according to bets, but I don't care. Almost everybody on our previous show thought Bisping was going to win. Everybody who we were speaking to, GSP was an underdog in my books. He won. Rose shocking everybody. TJ Dillashaw, I think that was a pick and fight, but he still shocked a lot of people in the fashion that he won. So, an outstanding card, honestly.
A fantastic card indeed, UFC 217, one of the memorable cards of 2017. A quick reminder, guys, tune into Submission Radio mid this week. That's Wednesday in America, Thursday in Australia. A lot more to talk about. We can't leave these things untied. There's some loose ends. It's a little bit like Law & Order SVU. We've got to get into it. We've got to figure it out.
This is just the first court case.
It's just the first court case. There's more to come. Quick reminder, of course, expendable posters behind us. What's old becomes new. Denis, Shkuratov, Kacper, Rosolowski, Submission Radio HQ. We'll catch you guys soon.